Let's start with the early game. 3 Eastern, 1 Mountain, in Denver, Patriots, Broncos. Now look, the main storyline coming into this one, and it's going to be the storyline all week, whether you like it or not, is Jarrett Stidham taking over as quarterback after 1 snap, I believe, earlier this year, and it was a kneel down. Jarrett Stidham taking over with Bo Nix done for what remains of this season for the Broncos. And the initial reaction to that was, oh my God, what are the Broncos going to do? But I think Sean Payton has a strong enough track record of preparing not just his starting quarterbacks, but his backup quarterbacks, that his game plan isn't going to be predicated on Jarrett Stidham making a ton of plays. It's going to be based on Jarrett Stidham just running the offense and doing what's asked of him. And look, it's not a knock against Bo Nix to acknowledge that Nix wasn't the reason the Broncos were winning games more often than not. It's about the defense. And it's about not turning the ball over and giving it to your opposition on a short field. It's about causing those turnovers yourself. It's about getting after the opposing quarterback. Everything that's worked well for Denver this year can still work well in this game on Sunday afternoon at Mile High. Why 5 points still feels like a lot at BetMGM. Patriots favored by 5. And it's a weird number. It's sort of between the key numbers of 4, 4.5, and 6, 7. Oh my God, I just made a 6-7 reference. I swear to God, I didn't mean to do that. Let's just ball up the last 15 seconds of the show and throw it out. Erase that from the tape. Anyway, it's a weird number at 5, kind of between a few key numbers. So play it how you want. My eye on this would be towards the under. I think it's a race to 20. And the total has inched up from the open at 40.5 to 42. That's a look at it from the perspective of how you want to bet on it. The main storyline, as I said, is going to be Jarrett Stidham. I think it should be the other quarterback. I know you've got a backup starting in a conference championship game. Again, I think Sean Payton will have Jarrett Stidham ready and won't ask him to do any more or less than Bo Nix has done this year. Look what he did a few years back. I can't remember what year it was exactly, but Teddy Bridgewater was the backup to Drew Brees in New Orleans when Peyton was still there and was out for 6 weeks or something. I think Teddy Bridgewater went like 5-0 because Peyton knows how to get his backups ready. And I think he'll have Jarrett Stidham ready, like I said, to make the right plays at the right time and not try to do too much. But what about Drake May? I know I've questioned May a good bit this year. He was on fire late in the season. Undoubtedly will end up right behind Matt Stafford in MVP voting. And you can't argue that it was a breakout year for Drake May. But protecting the football, especially in the playoffs, has not been his forte. Hasn't been excellent at it, has he? 6 fumbles in 2 playoff games for Drake May. He's lost 3 of those. 14 fumbles when you total up all 19 games the Broncos have played this year. He's lost 6 of them. Given what we've seen from the Patriots defense in forcing mistakes from C.J. Stroud, in getting after Justin Herbert, is there any reason to believe that both of these quarterbacks aren't going to be running for their lives on Sunday, including Drake May? Now, I get it. He's good at running for his life. But this is the team that has piled up more sacks by a wide margin than anyone else in the league this year in the Broncos. They do a great job of disguising coverages and blitzes. Where's the pressure coming from? I don't know until the ball's snapped, and then it's too late. Because I got 2.4 seconds to get rid of that thing before somebody's on top of me. If I'm Drake May. Again, it's a race to 20. It's going to be which quarterback makes fewer mistakes. And I think because of the fact that Peyton will insulate Stidham from making those mistakes, May is actually in a more precarious position going into this game. He can't put the ball on the ground multiple times. He can't make a mistake trying to fit a ball into tight coverage. The Broncos defense will feast on that like they have all year. And the decisions are going to have to be quicker than they've been at any point this season from May, which means you're going to have to piece together drives. You're going to have to dink and dunk your way down the field, even if you're not making mistakes. So, again, I would not be the least bit surprised to see the Broncos handle business at home against the Patriots, but I think it'll come down less to Jarrett Stidham and more to the opposing quarterback in Drake May on Sunday afternoon in the first of those two conference championship games. As for the second of the two, I know the Jarrett Stidham storyline is very interesting. I think this game, much more interesting in Seattle. Well, it's the third time they've played this year. And we're coming off of the matchup 5 weeks ago between these two, where Sam Darnold looked like seeing ghosts New York Jets Sam Darnold for the first 3 quarters of the game, and then had a miraculous fourth quarter and overtime. If Darnold plays like that again for 3 quarters, they're not going to get out alive, the Seahawks. I don't think they've got that wild fourth quarter overtime comeback in them again. It's why I think the most important name in this game is Kenneth Walker III. Zach Charbonnet done. Walker hasn't carried it more than 19 times in a single game this year. He's had his own injury concerns over his career. That's why they didn't pick up his contract coming into this season. The option on his contract, I should say. But he's capable of being that guy who gets the ball, should be fresh, right? Again, no games with more than 19 carries this year. He shared the load with Charbonnet. He should be fresh, Kenneth Walker III. Fresh enough anyway that they could be as all in on him and the run game as they need to be against the Rams. Take some of the load off of Sam Darnold's shoulders. Take some of it off of JSN's shoulders. Don't make it all about those two having to connect 8-9 times. I didn't screw up and do the 6-7 thing that time. Thank God. But the less you can make the game about Sam Darnold, the better. Again, it's not a knock on Darnold, and it's not a knock on any quarterback in general. I've mentioned this before, and I will continue to repeat it until people actually buy into the concept. It's not a knock on a quarterback to say you're going to ask him to manage a game. That's your number one job as a quarterback. If you're in position as a quarterback to have to pull your team's rear end out of the fire to go win a game, that's not advantageous. It's great if you're a quarterback who can do it, sure. But you don't want that to be the plan. You want the plan to be, hey, listen, we trust you, we believe in you, and we're not going to ask you to go out and win the game by yourself. We need you to make the right throws at the right time. We need you to manage the offense, Sam. And Kenneth Walker III is key to that. To take some of that pressure, some of that load off of Darnold's shoulders. And here's the thing. The way Seattle played in that fourth quarter and overtime in Week 16, they're capable of playing like that for a full game. Ask the Niners. Now, the Niners were extremely shorthanded. I had someone say to me last night, a good friend of mine texted me, he said, the Seahawks didn't bludgeon the Niners because they were that much better. They bludgeoned the Niners because the Niners didn't have any hands to get up in front of themselves to protect themselves from the punches. I think that's partially true. But have you seen the dominant fashion the way the Seahawks have played at times this year, especially on defense? All it's going to take is one key mistake, and they will scoop that thing up. They may score with it, as they've done multiple times this year, sometimes multiple times in the same game. And they will turn the momentum right back in their favor. So, again, it's not an insult. It's not a knock to a quarterback to ask them to manage the game. No one would call Matthew Stafford a game manager. But if the Rams can't run the ball at all, then they're cooked. Seattle will pin back their ears, and they'll beat up Stafford. So another game that I think, look, the number's a little bigger. It's 47.5. And there's still reason to believe that given the way these two teams played each other 5 weeks ago, that it could get into a back and forth affair late. So I would not play the total. And I probably would not play a side either. I'll be honest, I'd probably just look once they get posted later in the week at Kenneth Walker props. But as for the game itself, that dude is the storyline. If Kenneth Walker III has not a massive game, just a good game, and Sam Darnold doesn't have to throw the rock more than 26, 27 times, Seahawks are going to win. That defense is too damn good. That defense and Denver's defense in the Super Bowl, good Lord, have mercy. Once again, your drunk uncle gets proven right. Told you kids, defense wins championships. You're right, Uncle Billy. Here we go. Jared Stidham and Sam Darnold in the Super Bowl. That's my lean anyway. Stidham and Darnold. If you would have told somebody 4 years ago that the Super Bowl 60 quarterback matchup would be Stidham and Darnold, they'd have laughed you out of the room. But I think that's probably what we're headed for. If those two guys can come up for their teams, Stidham can make fewer mistakes than May in the early game, and Kenneth Walker III can have a good enough game that Darnold doesn't have to go out and win it again, as he did in Week 16, then I think we've got a Broncos-Seahawks Super Bowl.